What do you know about bravery? There will come a time in many of our lives when we will have to stand up and be brave. It's about standing up for the right thing when everything may seem against you. It's about being truthful with yourself and others around you. Bravery is about saying the right thing when you know it needs to be said and having the courage to admit when you're in the wrong. Being brave can help steer you on the right track if you've been on the wrong one, and bravery teaches us that there's nothing wrong with making mistakes as long as you own up to them and try to make things right. Over the years, many people have demonstrated this behaviour, and the sad part is many of these individuals were lost to history. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 5 brave individuals and how their actions had massive consequences. The first person on this list is Jack Churchill. Jack Church went by the names of John and Jack. However, regardless of whatever you choose to call him, his story is one that has inspired many people. He was born into the family of Alec Fleming Churchill on the 16th of September 1906. There were claims that Jack Churchill may be related to the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, British politician and writer Winston Churchill, but that claim is not right as Winston's ancestors were from Dorset while Jack's ancestors were from Oxfordshire. Jack was known for his brave act during World War II. Jack, who was also known by his nickname Mad Jack and Fighting Jack Churchill, was a British Army officer who didn't fancy the use of rifles and tanks during the war. He would engage in physical combat. However, what set him apart was the use of swords with enemies, and those that were in the distance would be attacked with his longbow. It's hard to imagine that during such a conflict, a soldier would have used swords and arrows, but that's one of the reasons why he got the name Mad Jack. He was also known for being an incredible bagpipe player, and would on some occasions play his bagpipes to encourage his troops. He did this when him and his men were entering Sicily. Incredibly, he was responsible for the capture of 42 German troops. Another crazy incident was when he was playing his bagpipes during a battle in Yugoslavia, while halfway through a song a grenade landed nearby and threw him backwards. The blast ended up knocking him out, but he was able to recover. In the year 1936, at the age of 30, Churchill moved to Kenya to experience more adventure. He was employed as an editor in a newspaper company, and he doubled that with a modelling career. He didn't stop at that, as he also spent time in the movie industry by appearing in 2 films. Churchill passed away on the 8th of March 1996 at the age of 89 years old. Another person known for their bravery is that of Major General Daniel Edgar Sickles. A little boy born with a silver spoon on the 20th of October 1819 by Susan Marsh Sickles and George Garrett Sickles, a patent lawyer and politician respectively, was named Daniel Edgar Sickles. Sickles had many scandals attached to his name, one of which was the eliminating of a US attorney who also doubled as the son of a renowned American lawyer, Philip Barton Key II, for allegedly having an affair with his wife. Sickles was later discharged of the crime after claiming impermanent craziness. That would be the first time anyone would claim that in the history of the United States. At the flare-up of the Civil War, Sickles attempted to fix his bad image by bringing volunteer units up in New York for the Union Army. The Battle of Gettysburg was the event of the most acclaimed occurrence and what we termed as courageous. Sickles' plan and tactics gave his troops and country a victory, but at the expense of his leg, which was hit by a cannonball and later amputated. Interestingly, he donated his right leg to the Army Medical College in Washington, D.C. Another interesting fact is that once a year he would go and visit his shattered bones that were kept there. Before his leg was blown off, he was with his forces in a wheat field. At this time, they were under attack and things weren't looking good. Although he refused some order to not go ahead with an attack, he decided at the time that this would be the best thing to do. And although it did end up in the loss of many men, these actions actually ended up helping in the overall victory of the battle. Another interesting story is that of Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov. Lieutenant Petrov was a Russian who was born on the 7th of September 1939. His mother was a nurse and his father was a pilot. Petrov graduated in 1972 from Kiev Higher Engineering Radio-Technical College. His brave act started on the morning of the 26th of September 1983. Petrov was a 44-year-old lieutenant colonel in the Soviet Air Defense Forces at that time. He was working in a war room outside Moscow where the Soviet military were checking United States activities in case of any missile attack on their soil. There were warnings across all the PCs in the room, stating that 5 intercontinental ballistic rockets had been propelled from an American base. Colonel Petrov was at a vital point in the basic leadership chain. His bosses at the Notice Framework base camp answered to the General Staff of the Soviet military. Everyone but him wanted a retaliatory attack on the United States. Following 5 harrowing minutes, electronic maps and screens were blazing as Petrov held a telephone in one hand and a radio in the other, attempting to ingest surges of approaching data. Colonel Petrov concluded that the dispatch reports were most likely a false caution. Petrov proclaimed the signal wasn't right, although it was a 50-50 situation, but he stood on his claim. Afterward, it was evident that he was correct. No rockets were drawing closer, and the PC Discovery framework was failing. It was along these lines discovered that the bogus caution had been made by an uncommon arrangement of daylight on high-height mists above North Dakota and the Molniya circles of the satellites, a mistake later revised by cross-referencing a geostationary satellite. This single act and decision from Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov helped prevent the outbreak of nuclear war. The great and brave colonel passed away on the 19th of May 2017 at the age of 77. Frank Luke Jr. is another story that's inspiring. Luke's father, Luke Sr., moved from Germany to America in the year 1874, and 23 years after Luke Jr. was born on the 19th of May 1897. Frank Jr. joined the aviation industry, the US Signal Corps, on the 25th of September 1917 and got pilot training in Texas and California. Frank belonged to an operation group of the United States Air Force located in Virginia called the 27th Aero Squadron. Something worthy of notice in Frank's attitude was his arrogance. Frank was known as always wanting to fly alone and defying orders. This made Frank to be somewhat hated by a portion of his companions and bosses. However, during one mission, him and his men were told to demolish German perception inflatables known as an observation balloon. Along these lines, Luke, alongside his dear companion Lieutenant Joseph Frank Weiner, constantly volunteered to assault these significant targets, despite the fact that they were intensely shielded against airplane firearms on the ground. The two pilots started an astounding series of triumphs together, with Luke assaulting the balloons and Weiner flying defensive spread. Weiner was unfortunately eliminated on the 18th of September 1918. This was while in a dogfight. Luke at that point destroyed 2 of these planes, 2 inflatables and a Halberstadt. Between the 12th of September and the 29th of September, Luke was credited with destroying 14 German inflatables and 4 airplanes. Luke accomplished these 18 triumphs during only 10 fights in 8 days, an incredible accomplishment that not many have been credited with. Frank Luke Jr. passed on during an encounter with the German infantry after his airplane was gunned down by a machine gun. The last in this video is that of Corporal Desmond Doss. This heroic man shook the hand of President Harry S. Truman during his speech in the White House. Doss experienced childhood in Virginia and was a Seventh-day Adventist. In late April 1945, a 26-year-old Doss and his unit were called upon to assist battle with approaching Uroso Mura. Doss's unit was entrusted with climbing a tricky 400-foot-high spiked hill, nicknamed Hacksaw Ridge, to find a workable pace. Sitting tight and waiting for his team were a huge number of intensely outfitted Japanese troopers. During the month-long battle, Doss treated a few harmed men, dressing their injuries directly on the battlefield before carrying them to a safe location. About 7 days into the battle, Doss was the main surgeon whose job was to deal with the remainder of the men. Doss was brave and continued with his duty despite the Japanese raining bullets at them. The ambush left numerous injured and eliminated many of the men. The rest of the Americans were driven down the ledge aside from Doss. Over a period of a few hours, Doss treated the wounded and hauled them to safety. By sunset, he had brought 75 troopers to safety. However, his heroic acts did not end there. Days after, as the Americans proceeded with their moderate development, Dos was injured in the leg by an explosive. Rather than approaching another doctor for help, he treated himself. As he was being conveyed back to a guide station, his unit was assaulted once more. Dos demanded that another seriously harmed warrior take his spot on the stretcher. As he proceeded with his trek by walking, Dos was hit by a sharpshooter, breaking his arm. He figured out how to make a brace out of a rifle stock, and he, in the end, made it to the guide station for treatment. We remember and appreciate all those brave heroes that fight for peace. What do you make of these incredible stories? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.